Cheers, guys. Epix 911, welcome to the Elitist Geek and VR news for July 15th on a Friday. Woo! Love my Fridays, because Fridays rock. Well, and lots of gaming, right? So in news, there was an article posted on Upload VR that compared or talked about Samsung having a partnership with WB. And the partnership has to do with a movie called Suicide Squad, which is a DC hero flick. Well, anti-hero flick, to be more factual, that we know had at least one scene, possibly more, filmed with a 360-degree camera. They mention in kind of the blurb for this that you can experience the action alongside your heroes. So it's probably going to be, and the reason I mention this is it's kind of the perfect timing, because we talked about it in a previous video, just a couple of videos ago, I think it was last night's video, about that, those tips for virtual reality filmmakers, where 90% of the action, or the majority of the action, takes place in a 90-degree cone in front of you. Then there's going to be the odd bit of action that goes to the side, 235 degrees to either side, to help create the environment that the viewers feel like they have a full 360 degrees, even though you're trying to prevent them from spending most of their time looking backwards or to the side. And that was I thought it was a really good method to do exactly that. Now, with Suicide Squad, the idea is that you're going to be part of the action. To what degree are you going to be involved? I don't know, but I can't wait to find out, because it'll be a taste of things to come. And we've had lots of speculation, and we've had lots of horrible, terrible fish lens style experiences that, even if it ends up being just one scene, potentially it could be just an awesome thing for films in VR. Because I know there's quite a few of you guys that are watching movies already. There's people using the virtual desktop, which I got to admit is not something I've done much yet. I've checked it out a couple of times, but haven't really, been a user of it on a regular basis. So this will kind of give us an idea of what that immersion is going to feel like. And it's almost a shame that it's only the Samsung device at this point, right? Hopefully that opens up. But anyways, if you have a Samsung device and this comes out, hopefully I'll hear from you. Let me know. I'd love to know what that immersion feels like. Now, the next one is one of those frickin' articles that just pisses me off, because it's too sensationalist in the extreme, right? And look, there's a difference between passion and either hyping the living snot out of something because you want it to succeed so bad, right? Versus doing the exact opposite. And that's where this article was going. They were going clearly in the direction of way too extreme, too negative, calling for the death knell of VR because of bad games. Well, let's look at that for a sec. First of all, are there bad games? Of course there are. Are there only bad games? Hell no. I know in my chats with you guys, my own experience and research, there's a ton of fun stuff out there, right? There's crap, but there's fun stuff. There's definitely some gems already. There's gems being worked on, and there are going to be gems in the future, because I fully expect and anticipate that killer app. I don't know what it is, but I know it's coming. I know it's coming, and to signal the end of the industry already is no better than that other article that we talked about the other day, right? It's way too premature for that. The market will course correct. People are only going to forgive companies that, release crappy game after crappy game so long. And examples of that, and the tombstone fallout evidence of that, is littered throughout the last 3-4 decades even. You look at Atari 2600. They released, I believe it was 77 or 78, that holiday season of 77, I think, so just before 78. And there are good games on the Atari 2600, but there's a lot of crap. A lot. Like, the ratio was to the point where quality assurance just went in the toilet because they were riding on so much success, you know, those first 3 years, that 1981 and 2, it started going in the direction where so many of the games were just utter and complete crap piles of crud software with really no redeeming features. And it was that oversaturation in the market that ultimately contributed to the game crash of 83. You can look at other examples, the Atari Jaguar, 3DO, etc. There's tons of examples. So that is something that, you know, could happen down the road, but it's not going to be this early, and it's not going to be, it's just not the way that one of, you know, that scenario is going to play out for one of these vendors, because there are enough good games. Now, if it suddenly shifts in that extreme direction and all we can buy is crap after crap and it becomes saturated with that, absolutely it's a possibility, but way too early right now. Way too early. Now, the next article, this one's a doozy, all right? It talks about, well, it asks the question, is the PlayStation 4 powerful enough for virtual reality? Well, think about that, right? And it's going to get into the whole reprojection thing. Now, did I have enough beer? I should have filled this before I did the video, but anyways, the current PlayStation 4 is a capable machine, right? But it's by no means the powerhouse. Yeah.
Here?
Oh, awesome. Thanks, bro. Cheers, man. Awesome. Sorry, guys. It's by no means the, you know, powerful piece of hardware that virtual reality needs. It's going to be able to meet requirements, absolutely. But my fear is it's going to rely way too much on reprojection to accomplish that. And, you know, we need to kind of look at reprojection for just a few minutes because it's such an important variable in this. Now, when we first talked about reprojection a few weeks back, I understood the basics, but not nearly to the extent that I do now, in awesome part to so many of you who discussed it with me, and additional research that I've done since then, that I am now, I've got a pretty firm line in the sand about reprojection, right? Now that I know more about, you know, what the negative impact of that technology is, and we didn't really talk about it in the video, so I want to talk about it in this one, just so for anybody who's on the fence about it and, okay, well, how can extra frames be a bad thing? Isn't that a good thing? And then just constantly use reprojection? No, because it comes with pitfalls. And a lot of the issues that you may experience are probably as a result of that reprojection. So how it works, I've said before, it adds those extra frames, right? Because 90 frames is kind of the holy grail. You want to hit 90. It's going to minimize, not eliminate, motion sickness, etc., etc. But the key are the side effects that it brings along with that. Juddering, tracers. So if there's certain types of movement or tracking that takes place during reprojected frames, you can get ghosting effects and tracing effects. And that's exactly that, you know, you move your hand in front of your face like this and you can see the animation almost of your hand, like all previous instance of it. That's basically a tracer effect. And that's more pronounced the more reprojection you have and the more movement that you have during that reprojection. So obviously, the worse your hardware is, the more pronounced that side effect could be. So you're actually achieving the opposite of what you wanted. Yeah, it might be artificially smooth enough to prevent nausea, but you're killing a lot of the immersion and look and fluidity of the game because your hardware is just woefully inept, really, for the task, right? There's color bleeding. There's what's called intercamera distance. And I've talked about IPD, which is the interpupillary distance. Well, with the camera distance, what you can have happening is during reprojected frames, it artificially narrows, right? Think of it this way. Think of it in terms of IPD, the one we've talked about already. So imagine you set your IPD and let's just say 70 degrees, right? For me personally, let's say it's 70. You dial it in at 70. Now imagine if during the course of your game, maybe there's lots of action on the screen, whatever, all of a sudden that narrowed again or started going wide. It would be noticeable. It'd be perceptible vision-wise. You would see that happen. That's one of the many concerns with reprojection, right? Particle systems, another huge one. Particle systems are especially problematic when they happen and occur during those missed frames, right? Those reprojected frames. So just on the balance, all those different things, the particle systems, leisurely head turns is another one, right? With leisurely head turns, it should be 100 degrees, I think it is 100 degrees, yeah, per second, either way. It throws that off. So there's lots of negatives to the reprojection for really just the positive of you don't have the hardware to run it. So again, I make that recommendation. Do it with, plan C in mind. You've tried A, you've tried B, then sure, try that. But it shouldn't be your first line, even maybe your second. It should be something that you use as a last resort. There is a fantastic video, and it's so comprehensive and in-depth on it that if you watch it too late, it'll probably put you to sleep. But what it does a great job of, and I'm going to link it in this video, it's a game developer conference video about reprojection. All these penalties that I talked about kind of in summary, they go into in-depth on that. Have a look at it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. But it boils down what I was saying with specific examples, right? So you can see. So use it for missing frames as a last resort. So let's tie that back to the whole question of, is the PS4 adequate? Based on those factors alone, if you were asking me personally, no. I would buy PlayStation VR, but I would probably do it with the new PlayStation 4. And the only reason is for me personally, I want an apples to apples comparison. Obviously, it's still probably far from that in a lot of ways, but it does level the playing field in terms of the no reprojection, right, taking place. I can look at all three platforms and I can judge them in a, reprojection free kind of gaming environment. Because again, you got to remember, it's 120 frames for Sony PlayStation 4 to meet that. Half of that is 60. They can't hit 60 on a lot of their current games to get 60 frames per second at 1080p, right? How much more when you're dealing with 120 hertz? So for me personally, again, I would recommend getting the upgraded PS4 specifically to address that if VR is kind of like your overriding reason to have or to play PlayStation games. If it isn't, hell yeah, make do with your PlayStation 4, your current one. But if you're an enthusiast and you truly want a good VR experience, my recommendation would be exactly that. Go with the newer PS4. All right, guys, that's it for this news video. I'm going to get myself back to some gaming. Curious to know what your guys' thoughts are. Leave them in the comments below. And as always, guys, cheers.